So in November of 1971, List began a new life. But first, he had to end his current one. He killed his entire family, his wife, 3 children, and his elderly mother. Then he dragged the bodies into the ballroom and arranged them neatly in a row. He tried to clean as much of their blood off the floor as he could. He also sat down to write a long letter of confession. When he finished, he left his house for the last time. A month passed before the Westfield police received a call from a woman concerned about her neighbors. She hadn't seen them home, and their lights had been on day and night until one by one they burned out. When the police arrived, they found an unattended mansion in need of repair. They looked around the outside of the house until they found an open window. When they entered, they had no idea what was waiting for them. The air was cold and filled with the odor of decay. They kept searching through the darkness until they finally came upon the List family in the ballroom, still neatly laid out, dead for a month. It was one of the most grotesque murders Westfield police had ever seen. When detectives were called in, they found the guns List had used and his letter of confession. List was an active member in the church and addressed the letter to his pastor. In it, he explained that he was no longer able to support his family and pay for the mansion his wife had insisted they buy. He was worried his family faced a life of humiliation on welfare. He was also upset his wife and children had stopped attending church. He felt his daughter had taken a misguided interest in acting, which threatened to deny her status as one of God's children. At least, he concluded, I'm certain they've all gone to heaven now. After slaying his family, List left his car at New York's Kennedy Airport and took a bus heading out of town. He hid his crime carefully. A month passed before anyone noticed his disappearance. Police and the FBI conducted a worldwide search, but nothing turned up. 18 years later, New Jersey detective Bernard Tracy was still on the case. He would make one last one somewhere to turn him in.
But one thing I can tell you about the John List investigation, back in 1971, this was a state-of-the-art investigation.
Tracy was assigned to the case in 1974, taking over from detectives who'd been on the case for 3 years. The investigation was one of the most thorough ever conducted by New Jersey police. In their search for clues, detectives performed psychological profiles of List and his family.
We did little profiles on the victims.
Persuaded a television producer to include the case in a series on fugitives from justice. The producer, in turn, enlisted the expertise of Philadelphia forensic artist Frank Bender to sculpt the face of List as he might appear at age 63. The sculpture would appear on television for millions of people to see. If Bender could produce a good likeness of John List 18 years after the crime, he might finally be found. To help guide his imagination as he adds years to a face, Bender carefully reviews the subject's background and his habits, knowing they're unlikely to change. Behavior can influence how a person ages. Before starting the List project, Bender thoroughly researched his subject. He discussed List's psychological aspects with forensic psychologists and police experts.
Relax. If you mow your lawn in a suit and tie, you're not relaxed. It's about staying in control. He'll still be wearing probably the same clothes, the same type of bow tie. None of that's going to change.
You know, I've been going to a church on Sundays, and as often as I can, to try to get the feel of like what his environment is really like.
Any clue police gave him about List's life helped Bender form an image of how he may have aged.
Lifestyle, hairstyle, hobbies, hereditary factors. Then I either do my own psychological profile, as I've done in numerous cases, or as in this case, bring in a forensic psychologist and go back and forth with this individual, walk around the town for maybe 2 or 3 days, really get to know this person, put my feet in their shoes, and in a sense kind of become the person so I can stay one step ahead of them visually.
To obtain a scientific outlook on the aging process, Bender visited the medical school of the University of Pennsylvania. Here, he consulted with Dr. Scott Bartlett, an expert in cranial and facial surgery and in repairing congenital deformities of the face. Dr. Bartlett's knowledge of the aging process, as reflected in the human face, made him a valuable ally. Bender was curious about the appearance of a scar behind List's ear from an operation.
The scar went from his ear down to at least his collar.
I would guess that, drawing the ear in something like this, more to the side of the head, and I would guess that there's bound to be, if he had an open